Hear these beautiful words, my friends. Direct experiences of transcending mystery and wonder are primary sources of Unitarian-Universalist inspiration. These experiences open our hearts, renew our spirits, and transform our lives. We draw upon and are inspired by sacred, secular, and scientific understandings that help us make meaning and live into our values. These sources ground us and sustain us in ordinary, difficult, and joyous times. We respect the histories, contexts, and cultures in which these sources were created and are currently practiced. Grateful for the experiences that move us. Aware of the religious ancestries we inherit, and enlivened by the diversity which enriches our faith, we are called to ever deepen and expand our wisdom. This is the new language adopted by our faith in June at General Assembly, language that was drawn and pulled from previous language. It's not totally out of the box here, but it's kind of placed together in a new way. And language that better help us articulate what it is we're trying to do around here, right? Reminds us that we are a spiritual community trying for something theologically hefty, it turns out. Direct experiences of transcending mystery and wonder. These experiences open our hearts, renew our spirits, and transform our lives. So I was sitting in meditation and prayer with these words of ours, and an image came to my mind, and I kind of laughed at it and kind of scoffed, did a bit of this, but it just kept coming back to me, and that's always a sign that I need to stay with it. So Izzy, our tech minister today, is going to make some magic happen in here. This is how I feel about technology, by the way. It's a mystery and a wonder, and I'm grateful for Izzy. So maybe this is not what you expected. Before I say anything, I want you to just have your own experience with it. Just take it in. And for those of you whose vision is making this a little bit challenging, it's a simple line drawing depicting a person on their knees praying to a duck. And a sliver of a moon is overhead. That's it. This was drawn by Australian cartoonist and illustrator Michael Leunig, whose work appears in a weekly newspaper, The Sunday Age of Melbourne. And in 2006, he published a compilation of his work entitled When I Talk to You, A Cartoonist Talks to God. Michael was hired as a cartoonist for the Sunday Age, but found it difficult to just draw and write jokes, which he felt were already plentiful. So instead, he decided the newspapers might carry some small spiritual message of consolation as a, quote, tiny reparation for the enormous anxiety and distress the rest of their content generally causes. So this was one of them. And here is what Michael Leunig wrote about it. I have drawn a simple picture of a person kneeling before a duck to symbolize and demonstrate my ideas about the nature of prayer. I ask the reader to bear with the absurdity of the image and to remember that the search for the sublime may sometimes have a very ridiculous beginning. Here then is the story behind the picture as written by him. A person kneels before a duck in a sincere attempt to talk with it. This is a clear depiction of irrational behavior and an important aspect of prayer. Let us put this aside for a moment and move on to the particulars. The act of kneeling in the picture symbolizes humility. The upright stance has been abandoned because of the human attitudes and qualities it represents. Power, stature, control, rationality, worldliness, pride, and ego. The kneeling person knows, as everybody does, that a proud and upright person does not and cannot talk with a duck. So the upright stance is rejected. The person kneels. They humble themselves. They come closer to the duck. They become more like the duck. The duck in the picture represents one thing and many things: nature, instinct, feeling, beauty, innocence, the primal, the non-rational, and the mysterious and unsayable. Qualities we can easily attribute to a duck and qualities that coincidentally and remarkably we can easily attribute to the inner life of the kneeling person, to their spirit or their soul. The duck then in this picture can be seen as a symbol of the human spirit. And in wanting connection with their spirit, it is a symbolic picture of a person searching for their soul. Direct experiences of transcending mystery and wonder, experiences that open our hearts, renew our spirits, and transform our lives. And Izzy, you can just leave that picture on up. And there's that sliver of a moon. Now this morning, we've been bringing forward a bit of Rumi's Sufi wisdom into worship. It is actually his birthday tomorrow. He lived, wrote, and taught in the early part of the 13th century on the lands we now call Afghanistan, Iran, and Turkey. And Sufi theology is not so very distant from this illustration. Union with God, whose name is often depicted as love or friend in Sufism. This union is achieved similarly through humility and, yes, even absurdity. The upright stance, ego, pride, rationality must be cast aside for Sufis. It must be smashed, they say. Transcendence arrives in the posture of uncertainty, the non-rational. Sufi mystics long to become fools of God, like this guy, so that one's heart might come alive and be opened or transformed in some way, so that, as Michael Lunig writes, a soul might be found. So great mystics like Rumi have the moniker masters of the heart. That is what they're called, masters of the heart, not because they found the ultimate teaching, but because they know how to bring their alive hearts to a world soaked through with mystery, awe, and wonder in a consistent state of direct experience with it. And you know, our faith's ancestors, the Puritans, held tight to the belief that there was no difference between the sacred and the mundane. All was soaked through with divinity. Our belief in an interdependent web of existence, while drawn from indigenous wisdom, also feels tied to this theology in some way, no? And if we believe this to be true, really, well, then Michael Lunig's simple line drawing feels to be right on the money. That in order to live our Unitarian-Universalist faith, not just theorize about it, we would be in a constant motion through abandoning our upright positions before everything and before everyone, so that we might encounter the true nature of our souls. What's going on with me? I've been asking that question a lot these last few weeks. What is going on with me? And the souls of all. What is going on with you? And if we just take a beat with this, hold in our hearts what's going on in the world right now. What do you suppose would happen if human beings abandoned all of their upright positions so that we might encounter the soul of ourselves and one another, the soul of all living things? In the poem that Phoebe so beautifully read, Rumi shows us that the secret to happiness, which is to say union with that bigger something, oh gentle friend God, love, is an orientation of heart, so that if only for a totally absurd moment you might know that the flowing water of life, the stars watching, being unselved, the wonder of laughter, the crescent moon, the parrot cracking sugar, so that you might know what a direct experience of transcending mystery and wonder might feel like. In a different poem, Rumi asks, "Is this a graveyard? Is this a graveyard?" Question mark, question mark, question mark. No. Bring your alive heart. Bring your alive heart. Exclamation point. Bring it. The wisdom teaching this morning is simply this, my dear spiritual companions. Transcending mystery and wonder are everywhere all the time, within us and among us, and it is a personal choice and discipline each of us undertake every day to abandon our fixedness, our upright postures, so that we might get a glimpse of it, so that we might do our teeny tiny part to be it. To be it. The Trappist monk and Christian mystic Thomas Merton once said this: "The life of the spiritual path is as serious as death, and if you don't have a sense of humor, you won't make it."